and they should be ashamed.
The Honourable Tau Henare.
Mr Speaker, this is supposed to be about transport and all he can talk about is fetishes. But Mr Speaker, I just want to talk on... Chair, Pardon? Yeah, whatever. Mr Chair, I've got plenty to say. And all I could say to poor old Phil Twyford is this: just say yes. You know, this is the guy who's having a public meeting in a couple of weeks, and he's already promised two things. Have you got a point of order, or are you going to stand up and what?
A point of order, Julianne.
This morning.
Mr Chair, I thought that this debate was specifically on vote transport, and so far I haven't heard the member refer to vote transport at all.
The point is well made. This is vote transport. Honourable Tau Henare.
How long have I got, Mr Chair?
Not long now.
How long have I got?
4 minutes.
4 minutes. I've been talking for a minute, Mr Chair. This is what he's promised in Te Aratu: a ferry service from downtown Auckland to Te Aratu. A ferry service from downtown Auckland to Te Aratu. We haven't even got any of the infrastructure, and he's promising a $500 million exercise. But that's not the only thing that he's promised the good folks of Te Aratu. He's promised them a busway that is going to cost up to about $600 million. So two promises are already over the $1 billion mark. And I wonder how he's going to pay for that. Oh, well, I'll tell you what. No, he's not bringing a ferry back to Te Aratu. He's bringing a ferry service to Te Aratu. $1 billion promise for the good folk of Te Aratu. And how's he going to pay for all of this? Well, he's going to screw the people. He's going to screw the people of Te Aratu out of their own taxes. That's what he's going to do. How's he going to pay for it? And I got another little bit of news for. Oh, you don't like it. See, every question about the ferry service and the new bus, the so-called new busway, not once has this guy got up and said, how much is it going to cost? Not once has he said, this is how we're going to pay for it. He says, oh, we might stop a couple of roads that National are building. That's not enough for Mr Twyford's promises. That is not enough. More than enough. $1 billion is more than enough. This is how he's going to charge. This is how he's going to pay for it. He's going to up the petrol tax because he's a mate of Browntown 274. Mr Chair.
He is the man.
That's how he's going to pay for it. He's going to take it out of the back pockets of good working class people, the very people that he professes to represent, Mr Chair. And he hasn't even got the cojones to go and say yes to the gay marriage bill, for goodness sake. He hasn't even got the cojones to do that, Mr Chair. But I digress.
Point of order.
Point of order,
Mr. Chair, but I really don't believe that the speech has referred to vote transport at all. It's been talking about something completely different, which is the transport policies that have been proposed by Mr. Twyford, but those aren't actually in vote transport.
Order. Points of order aren't an opportunity. Order. I'm on my feet. Points of order are not an opportunity to make a speech. Members raising points of order should do so succinctly. And can I also say that it is tempting to use points of order to interrupt speakers who are actually speaking. And I think the chair normally has a fair appreciation of what standing orders are and where members are moving. And I think that on this occasion the member has been inside the boundary of what the tenor of the debate has been to date. So, but I'll just caution the member. Don't get off track. Honourable Tauhenere.
No, I won't get off track. I'll stay on roads, Mr Speaker. I'll stay on, Mr Chair.
Honourable Tauhenere.
I'll stay on roads, Mr Chair, because here's a fact that poor little Phil Twyford doesn't really know. In fact, funding for local roads has actually gone up. And all he needs to do is go to, and in fact the funding has gone up by 2 or 3%, Mr Chair. And all he needs to do is sit down like a good local member and have a look at the plan for Charity Road and Edmonton Road. And the widening and the cycle track, the cycleway, that's what he needs to do. So instead of the pie in the sky fetish that he thinks he's talking about, he needs to front up to the good folk of Te Aratu and say, Mr. and Mrs. Te Aratu, this is how I'm going to pay for the new ferry service. Mr. and Mrs. Te Aratu, this is how I'm going to pay for the busway. But he hasn't. And you know why, Mr. Chair? Because he hasn't got a clue. Because he hasn't got a clue. They think that by having a good idea, or an idea, doesn't even have to be a good one, that it'll just appear. The same with Planet Green, Mr. Chair. I can't wait till well, I actually can wait till they get to the Treasury benches, but this is how they do it. They sit there smoking the old weed. Well, not these fellas, but then they come up with some harebrained idea, and because that harebrained idea sort of sounds okay, then it is just going to appear that the road and the ferry is just going to appear. I wonder, Mr. Chair, if he's even asked the good people of Te Aratu about the ferry service. Because he hasn't. He hasn't. So not only has he not costed it out, and he was told by New Zealand Transport Authority that they had already looked at the busway, and it was cost prohibitive, Mr. Chair. My advice to the Green member is to jump on one of those roads and get the other half of the tattoo done. Because I tell you what, Mr. Chair, there is no way in hell that the good people of Te Aratu can afford the harebrained schemes of Mr. Phil Twyford, who's only been in the electorate 5 minutes. He hasn't even paid off quarter of his mortgage, Mr. Chair. He's got a mortgage, right. Mr. Chair, this is nothing but pie-in-the-sky dreams from a party that is not going to be anywhere near the Treasury benches for one reason and one reason only, and that is because they don't do the hard yards and they don't do costings which will eventually they will be put on the good folk of Te Aratu. $1 billion that we can't afford, and here he is promising the earth to the good folk of Te Aratu. Shame on that member.
Mr. Chair.
Claire Curran.
Mr. Chair, just before I start, I'd just like to